All right, since you need to turn in your first round of the Ultimate Tomato Challenge in week 2 of the course, I wanted to give you a little preview of the course and then show you how to turn in your result. If you go to the homepage, this is just the homepage of the website, you will see this link right here for the Ultimate Tomato Challenge, UTC. Just click on that. It'll open up a version of the app that's hosted on the Shiny App server. And what this is a design game that basically mimics you setting up an experimental design. Oops, I just remembered. I forgot to post the form that goes along with this. So I will post that right after this along with the design link, the design game link, so that you have access to that form as well. I devised this game a few years ago to help students experience designing an experiment in some way. The main reason behind this was I remember when I took experimental design, I learned about all these different designs, but I remember having the lingering question, if I were presented with a research question, how do I know which design to employ? How do I know which one to choose? And how do I go through that process? So this game was built, it's based upon an actual data set. It's kind of an old data set from, I believe, the 1970s, but it's something that I think everybody can relate to at some level. It was an experiment that they conducted at an agricultural kind of university where they were looking for the perfect growing conditions to produce the largest yield of these specific tomatoes. And there were several factors that they had to play with because they wanted the biggest yield, meaning the most amount of tomatoes produced, okay? And they had several factors that they could go with. Let me open up the worksheet here for just a moment. I'm going to pause and I'll show you those factors. Okay, so here we go. Let me make this a little bit larger. Oop, that's a little bit too large. There we go. So let's read the context. This is kind of from the research article where I got the data, but I also kind of fictionalized it a little to make it more readable. 2 farmers grow tomatoes in a greenhouse for market. After several years, one clearly gets higher yields than the other, but they are unable to figure out the reasons behind the differing yields. There are several factors: the amount of heat, the amount of light, and the variety, like the type of tomato plant, that can affect the yield when growing tomatoes. Grower A is conservative and uses a standard heating and lighting setting, and that's considered levels H0 and L0. You'll see that in the game in just a moment, and a variety of tomato called Coward. While grower B uses supplementary heating and lighting. So he has the higher levels of heat and the higher levels of light that are denoted H1 and L1. And a variety called Dodger. Your objective is to design an experiment and, based upon these results of your experiment, decide which combination of the 3 factors of heat, light, and variety gives you the highest yield of tomatoes. There are limited resources, however, for conducting these experiments, just like in real life. This is part of the challenge. It's not so much that the 3 factors is hard to figure out, but the challenge is the physical limitations, okay? There's only one greenhouse available for the experiment. See the figure below. And it contains 12 experimental plots. There's a north-facing side and a south-facing side. Let's all assume we're in the northern hemisphere. So think about, if we're in the northern hemisphere, which side is going to get more light most of the year? That would be the south-facing side. The very first time I played this game, I had a class where it was kind of equally split students between people who grew up in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. And so I asked them which side of the greenhouse is going to get more light, and about half the class said north and about half the class said south. And then I looked at them and I thought, oh wait, if we're in the northern hemisphere, which side of the greenhouse is going to get more light? And then everybody had the right answer. So I always point that out now, that we're in the northern hemisphere. in this example. And there's only 12 plots. So let's think about here we've got a 2 to the third. Sorry, let me not use my technical description. Here we've got 3 factors, right? And each of the 3 factors has 2 settings. So all the possible combinations of those 3 factors is 8. Okay, if you think about combining all possible combinations of heating, lighting, and variety of tomato. However, we have 12 spaces here. Notice 6 on the north side and 6 on the south side. And here's this middle part. You can't put any plots, okay, or plants. Sorry, I should have said plants. This is an aisle for accessing the plants. All right. So what I want you to do for this first week is I just want you to play this, not using any design principles, but just trying to think through, use your intuition, maybe at some level, to decide which treatments you want to apply. In class, what I would do is I would actually print this out, because students would get in groups and they'd sketch out, okay, let's put the coward at low light and high water here. I'm sorry, high heat here. Let's put the Dodger with low water or low heating and high light here. And they would plan this all out using, you can use those shorthand H0, L0, C, and D for that. And they would literally sketch this out and try to think about what the best configuration was of these 3 treatment levels. Okay. So first I want you to just decide upon your own, describe why. Okay. It may not be very technical at this point, and that's okay. When you play the game, you'll obtain the simulated yields. Interpret the results of your yields. This is why I wait for this week, and I actually want you to turn it in at the very end of the second week so that you have something to base your answer number 2 upon, and then reach a conclusion about what you think is the best yield. You're most likely not going to be right, but I want you to turn it in, and then I'm going to report back. I'm not going to say, oh, so-and-so said this was the best yield and somebody else said this is the best yield. I'll say, this is what people reported as the best yields in general. But I want us to compare, and I do anticipate that a lot of us will have different answers about what the best yield is. And that's okay at this point, because we have not learned our design principles yet. But I want you to see that experience, first of all, that this is not trivial to set up. And I will go ahead and tell you, we will not really be able to set this up in the way I would until the very end of the course, because there are some principles you need to learn before setting this up in the most correct way. So don't feel bad. Let me tell you this. My first semester I did this. I handed out this worksheet. I told people to go home and play the game at night and print out or write out their results. Half the class came back with nothing. And I said, what was wrong? That was not a hard assignment. I just wanted you to give it a try. And they said, well, we were afraid we'd be wrong. Let me go ahead and tell you, everybody's going to be wrong on this first round of the Ultimate Tomato Challenge. The only way I will count you as wrong is if you turn in nothing. So just make an attempt. Know that you have not yet learned the correct design principles to set this up the right way. But I want you to see the variety of answers that we get because we're not using the correct design principles yet. So make sure you turn it in regardless of how confident you are about your answer. This is an adventure to learn design principles, and we are all going to be wrong in this class at one point, and we need to lose that fear of being wrong. There's nothing wrong with being wrong in this class, as long as you learn your lessons by the end of the semester. So go ahead, take the time. I recommend playing this game maybe Thursday or Friday of week 2, so that you kind of have something to base, especially answers 2 and 3 upon. Have fun.